And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 114th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, November 5th, 2019, where I am your host, Noah Freeman. On the docket for tonight, we've got some basketball and football news to talk about, both good and bad, but we had another football Hoosier victory, the seventh victory on the season in the first weekend of November for football, which is literally the first time we've talked about this since we have been alive, Matt. But
True.
we're going to talk about the Northwestern game recap, and then we're going to go into the game that literally just finished as we're recording merely minutes ago for Western Illinois. As basketball season has finally started, it's finally here. We've got basketball and football. We're right in that sweet spot for college sports, right where soccer as well just made it to first place in the Big Ten. Then we'll move on to our annual. This is the third year we'll be doing this. We do game by game basketball predictions. So we'll go down the line. We'll talk about each game and we'll give our predictions. Do we think the team is going to win or lose this game? And by the end of the season, we can see how close we are. We'll give an update on our football rankings as well. But tonight, since it is such a jam-packed episode, we're going to split the game-by-game predictions in half. So we're going to do part one tonight, do just over half of the season tonight, and then next week we'll finish it up since, of course, the second half of the season won't start till January. So we're going to split that in half with the football bye week, because if there was a football game this weekend, my goodness, we would have way too much to talk about. But
True.
again, the OG cast crew with me tonight, as Nathan again is doing game duty, since this is yet the second game in a row that, of course, Indiana decides to have a game on Tuesday, and the second of third, since, of course, next week there's going to be another game when we're supposed to be recording our podcast. Nathan will be here then. But again, for tonight, here with me to help break down this plethora of news for IU sports is Matt. So how are you doing tonight, despite some of the recent news that came out a few hours ago?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm sure if you're listening to the podcast, you know what we're talking about. But no, it's great. Look, this is about as positive as you can be about Indiana sports at like all times. Like the basketball season starting up, so we don't have negativity of anything going wrong in basketball. And the Hoosiers in football have 7 wins, and it's the beginning of November. So I mean, this is wonderful. Everything's going well, and yeah, it's a great time to be a Hoosier fan.
It is a great time to be a Hoosier fan, but sadly, and man, this was going to be such a good episode for
I
so many
know.
reasons. Like we talked about Saturday, which seems like now forever ago, the Hoosiers got their 7th victory on the season. They are one game over bowl eligibility. Talking about the football Hoosiers, by the way, beating Northwestern and just stomping them, by the way, which is just puts the cherry on top, because everyone was like, there were quite a fair amount of people that were predicting a close game and a trap game for Indiana. I don't think we were in that category, but a lot of people were predicting it to be a little close game, and they were talking about how this Northwestern defense is for real. It's a top 15, top 10 defense, and their offense looked like they might start to move the ball at the beginning of the game, but nope. Indiana said no thank you, 34-3. They stomped Northwestern just to put
Mhm.
any doubt out of that topic. But that game seemed like forever ago, and then I was in Pittsburgh on Sunday going to the Steelers game, which was awesome. And then we had basketball start out today, so today was supposed to be, and of course the Hoosiers just destroyed Western Illinois, thankfully, as they should. So we have a lot of good stuff to
Relaxing.
talk about. Yep, exact. Relaxing is a very good word. Until right about, what was it, 5:30 ish, Twitter had started going around
5:35.
that Michael Penix is now out again with another season-ending injury. And so season-ending, there's only 3 games plus the bowl game left, so it doesn't seem like much season left, but he's already been out for a bunch of games this year.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, I feel so bad for him, because now, even if he bounces back from that, his NFL stock has now dropped. Even if he was going to keep going and he was going to keep getting better, and he was going to become one of those where the stats had him one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and he was going to possibly be drafted. But now, in the back of every single NFL scout's mind is going to be, hey, this kid has injuries. And I just really feel bad for him, first and foremost, with last year coming into this year, how he's been in and out with injuries, and just he can't get on the field. He can't have consistent play. And it's just really upsetting for him, to where I just feel bad for him because he can't
I,
get on the field. And
I'm not sure about that. Like, I get the whole NFL angle with the scouts being like that, but at the same time, like the ACL injury was a freak injury. He hadn't had knee problems before this, and then the shoulder thing was just like him getting pile drived into the ground, which I'll talk about later. But I mean, look, people say he's made of glass. I'm not sure he's made of glass.
yeah, I was going to say we should talk about that part first because
Yeah,
I don't think it's fair to say that first of all when Indiana is not a school that discloses injuries a lot. We don't necessarily know what was
true.
happened with him, but then again, it's really hard when he had that freak injury last year and he had a bunch of little injuries this year. It seemed like almost every game he was getting injured with something, and at least seemed like it was different because one point it seemed like it was like maybe a leg, and then there was possible concussion, and now we see that it's an upper body injury and all this stuff with just little things. It definitely doesn't help that he's
No.
had a bunch of different injuries, but I agree we definitely still shouldn't we should get that notion out of the way that he is made of glass because I don't think that's fair to him just yet. I think we need to give him a little longer for that and just for his sake. But yeah, let's get that part out of the way first.
For
I'll
sure.
let you continue.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's not made of glass. We don't disclose injuries, and it's hard to speculate. But if I had to speculate, I would assume the fact that they probably kept him out of 1 or 2 games this year just to be certain that he was going to be healthy. It just maybe was a little bit banged up and trying to keep him healthy so that he'd be ready for a bowl game later this year or whatever the season may throw at us. That all went out the window with one play against Northwestern last weekend, which just sucks and is devastating because I think we've talked about it multiple times in the podcast. I think we've talked it to death, but the offense looks so much better when Michael Penix is at the helm. Like he's just for an IU program, he's a generational talent. Like these guys don't grow on trees for this football program. Um, like a game-changing quarterback and just like so natural for the position. It's just, it's just disheartening, right? Like this IU football program, it seems like every time we take like 2 steps forward, it's like 1.5 steps back. And it's like, when are we going to get some good luck that doesn't come with a season-ending injury to one of our stars? You can look back to the year we beat Missouri, right? We went on the road to beat Mizzou, and then Sudfeld got injured and was out for the rest of the season. Like, I feel like with
Yep.
this IU football program, it's like every time something good
Well, your basketball
happens,
last year.
and just like basketball last year, there has to be something to kind of the yin to the yang. Like, something has got to like cancel it out and just put a sour taste in your mouth. It's really sad. But look, we're
I
7-2.
guess I
7-2. You there?
I was gonna say you talk about the into the yang, the other side. I guess the only way that the football have given us, so they took away Penix for us, and they were like, all right, you can have a 7-2 season, but we're gonna take out your star quarterback. So that's
Yeah.
what you get for actually doing well at the beginning of a season.
It's like, oh. But like, look, Peyton Ramsey's great backup quarterback, but like, I'm for sure now we're not going to win this Penn State game. Like, I was pretty sure before Penix got like injured and was going to be out, but now I certain we're going to lose that game. And then the Michigan game is a lot harder now that Penix is not in there. Like the play calls, the offense is run entirely differently with Penix out there. It's subtle, but if you know what you're looking for, it's a different offense when Penix is out there and Ramsey's out there. That offense, when Penix is out there, would be able to score at will, not at will, but a lot easier than a Peyton Ramsey offense could on that Michigan defense. The Michigan's known for playing really good defense. Their offense, on the other hand, is subpar as of recently. But anyways, that's besides the point. Look, we're 7-2. I'm sure we're going to beat the Purdue and go to Purdue and beat them because they look like a laughing stock of the Big Ten. And an 8-4 season missing Penix is nothing to scoff about, but it's just so annoying that we couldn't see Penix finish out the season because he deserved to finish out the season the way he's been playing this year.
And it's also it's a blow to his psyche too, because he was injured last year. He was really trying to come back and come back strong, and he did. And then he just had a bunch of nagging injuries. It didn't seem like he was 100% himself the entire season, and we haven't even seen him for very long. And you could just tell that there was something almost every game that just kept getting at him, and it's just so disheartening for him. It's disheartening for the team, and I really hope he's able to. I think he's a strong enough guy that will be able to come back and affecting, and that's just. I think this just really all of these pauses, I think, sums up all of our feelings right now. It's just we're almost at a loss for words for season. And I think you talked about the Penn State game. Definitely the Penn State game is out of the question. I think the Michigan game, a little more up in the air. I was one to think that they still probably would lose that game because Michigan is still it's still a tough team, like you talked about with defense. So I think we can safely say that those two games will probably be losses. And then the Purdue game, they look better this past weekend, but still, I think Indiana with Peyton Ramsey, you've seen the way he's been able to do it. He's been able to come back in and do that. So I think what you said now is definitely valid. I think it's actually really safe to say an 8-4 season going into the bowl game is probably what will happen. And who knows where that'll end up for the bowl game. But Hoosiers got to take care of business. They've been taking care of business so far. So I think it'd be safe to expect that you lose the Penn State, lose Michigan, and then take care of business against Purdue, because they haven't not taken care of business so far this year. The only time that it was close was Michigan State, and still no one thought they would beat Michigan State. So take what you will with that. But hopefully now our internet problems are corrected. If you are listening after on the podcast, hopefully I'll be able to edit that out. But let's talk a little bit about the Northwestern recap, because again, this football team still took on Northwestern at a night game. They won 34-3. It was almost another shutout game, close to 3 points, close to the third shutout of the entire season for Tom Allen and this Hoosier team. So it's really cool to see. We talked about the fan show out last week, and you were thinking more along the lines of 50,000. I was thinking more 45, and yet it was still lower than even what I said, which was a little sad. And look, it's not. This is not going to be something that's Rome wasn't built in a day. It's not going to be something like that. It's going to take some time for people to get back in the stands. But we always have that chicken or egg discussion. Does the football team need to start showing out before the fans come, or do the fans need to start showing out for the football team to start playing well? Well, now the football team is playing well, so the fans now have no excuse. They had a night game too, and they didn't show out as much as they could have, but it was still an okay crowd. I think Crimson Cast put it pretty blatant. The Connecticut game, there was a higher attendance rate for the Connecticut game than this Northwestern game, which is just mind-boggling that people couldn't come out to a night game against Northwestern team and already made a bowl game. And it just showed where the fans are this season. Twitter video that Tom Allen had going around giving out tickets. Sure. People didn't seem as excited as he wanted them to be, and as they probably should have been when he was going around the union giving out tickets to the game. So I don't know, but let's quickly talk about some of the Northwestern game itself, since we've taken care of all of the other that is related to football, the Indiana football. So what were your takeaways of the Northwestern game as the Hoosiers, again, for another game, which is, again, rare to say, thumped their Big Ten opponent, winning the fourth game in a row?
True. My thoughts, it's the Stevie Scott game. I think we just got to go out there, and I think that's the first thing that stood out to me. 116 yards on 26 carries, 4.5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown, 3 total on the day. Stevie Scott was great. And showed us why we're so excited for the future of the program, because he is only a sophomore and he will be here next year, and so will Penix and the Matthew Bedford, and we can go down the line, and Taiwan Mullen, who won the defensive player.
Peyton Ramsey, Ramsey.
Yeah, look, this program is going to be good for the next year or two at least. Anyways, Stevie Scott, 26 carries, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, catching one out of the backfield. That was his game. He showed out some really physical runs at the end of the game, something that made me get out of my seat. I was sitting there just chilling out because we're up 30. I get out of my seat and start yelling at the TV, like, "Get big, Stevie!" Because he was just running over some really good Northwestern defenders. Like, Northwestern's defense is decent, and he was just taking it to them at the end of the game. And it's something reminiscent of something you've seen against the Hoosiers, right? You look back a couple years ago, we had a good defense, and you'd see teams like Ohio State or Michigan at the end of the game run the ball into the teeth of our defense, run over our guys, and get big plays. And Stevie was doing that. That shows the progress that this program has made over the past couple of years, because now we're the program doing it to a Northwestern team that, albeit, is 1-7. But the defense was ranked in the top 30 in S&P Plus. So this is not a defense you can just scoff at. Like, Stevie was great. The offensive line was great. Peyton Ramsey looked really good when he came in. He was 7-10 for 108 yards. That's decent. Of course, Penix was 10 of 15 for 162. And then we lost him. But Peyton was really good coming in, and we'll be in safe hands with him. But yeah, I think the first thing I had to talk about was Stevie Scott, right?
I agree. Yeah, especially when you get Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week. That doesn't happen for Indiana football too often. So, yeah, like you said, 116 yards. He had that one catch out of the backfield for 20 yards and a touchdown, which 26 carries, it's a lot of carries, but they definitely used him well. He still averaged 4.5 yards per carry, which is good. So it wasn't like he ran the ball 40 times and he was averaging 2 yards a carry, and that's how it added up to 116. He was still running the ball at a very large pace. Then you've got receivers definitely, I think, spread the ball out more this week. It wasn't like there was one person, aka WAP, that was getting a lot of the attention, although WAP did have only 2 receptions, and those 2 receptions and the quick math, 35 yards as well. So WAP still had 2 catches, but you got Westbrook that still had 5 for 59, Freifogel 4 for 49, Hale 2 for 41. So all of the 270 yards added up to just a lot of wealth shared between WAP, Westbrook, Freifogel, and Hale, with Stevie basically taking the entire load of the entire game, which is, again, like you said, big shout out to the offensive line. Big shout out when you lose 2 key, not just 2 key pieces, but 2 key seniors, guys that are going to be the leaders on the offensive line, because the offensive line is one of the biggest position groups that need big leaders at the front, because they're calling out switches, they're calling out spreads, they're calling out this and that, just to try and make sure everyone knows they play as a unit. You hear about these good offensive lines in the NFL. The only really good offensive lines in the NFL have been playing with each other for 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 years together. It's about chemistry in the line. And these guys, when you've got 2 people, you've got a freshman with Matthew Bedford coming in and still being able to. I remember when he first came in, we were talking in the back channels and on this podcast talking about how we didn't think. I thought he would possibly be able to. I think the only one, but most people thought that he wouldn't be able to round it, since he was a freshman, and you really don't see freshman offensive linemen coming in there. He wasn't going to be able to hold his ground, and he's been amazing for the most part. Of course, he's had freshman mistakes, but what freshman doesn't on an offensive? You said shout out to the offensive line. Then you go over to the defensive side. Shout out to the defense just in general. You can just sum up the entire defense. Again, I think it's we know the identity of this defense now. They're not a spectacular defense that's going to beat an Ohio State, but you've got a team that's going to, you don't have one star player that's going to beat the opposing team. You've got an entire defense. And again, I talked about this last week, and it summed up last week's game against Nebraska, this week, it sums it up again. How many tackles do you think the highest person on the IU defense had?
Well, since I'm looking at the stat sheet,
Oh, there you go.
I'm going to guess 4.
It was 5. That's
Was
it.
it
And it was
5?
only one person. Marcelino had 5 total tackles.
Google's lying.
He had 4
to me.
solo,
Google
but
says
5 total tackles, or ESPN says 5. And that's
it's
crazy.
5, yes.
You usually your total tackles are about 9, 10, 11 for your highest person on the team, but you've got one person at 5 tackles against an opponent that only scored 3 points, which means they're playing pretty good defense. It's not like they're scoring a lot of points and there's not much defense going on, and there's not much tackling. There's a lot of tackling going on. And this team just showed out, and just kudos to this Hoosier team, especially who only got 1 sack compared to everything. But you have any thoughts about the last second thoughts on the offense and then moving into the defense before we move into some basketball?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to talk about the defense for very long because Northwestern's offense is atrocious. But
they took care of business, which is what Indiana doesn't do, and they did.
Absolutely. But last thoughts on the offense, we took our foot off the gas in the second half.
True.
I would like to see what the play calls would have looked like with Peyton Ramsey with our foot on the gas. But when he came in, we were already up 24-3. The game's basically out of reach at that point. So the rest of the game was kind of just like, all right, let's kind of work on some basics and kind of just move the ball down the field and try not to get injured, basically, at that point. It was very reminiscent of the first 3 games that we played. Well, not Ball State, but the Eastern Illinois and the UConn game, where we're kind of just moseying our way through the rest of the game. And
get a W and get out.
It's probably the most offensive thing you can possibly say to a Northwestern team that made the Big Ten title game last year. But look, they're rebuilding. Yes. Pat Fitzgerald was a little funny on the sidelines, getting upset at some fortunate IU pass interference calls, because some of those I don't think we would have gotten if we were the away team. But
it wasn't just the pass interference calls. He was going a little more than just those pass interference calls.
It was a lot of things that built up for Pat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, the offense was great. We were clicking on all cylinders. It was nice to see Jack Tuttle out there at the end. See a little game time for him.
I think Indiana still needs him as a safety net, just in case.
Absolutely, because Peyton Ramsey's the starting quarterback now. We're down 1. He's now the backup quarterback. So yeah, offense looked good.
Let's move on to, since there is a bye week for the football team this week, and thank goodness we can catch our breath with all of this football news that is going on, and they can get ready for Penn State, which, by the way, Penix goes down for a season-ending injury. No one thinks this Hoosier team can still win, regardless of their record. Maybe that gets them fired up for this Penn State game. Again, I think it's going to be a long shot, and we'll talk about that next week during our preview, but hey, you never know. If they want to take it personally that Michael Penix being out, which means they're going to lose out the rest of their games, including the bowl game, then great. Go use that to see how they can keep going. But let's move on to who won the week. Since Nathan is not here, I will take that. And you talked about the one about Stevie Scott, Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, sums it up. He definitely deserves that, since he literally won the week in the Big Ten offense since he won the Offensive Player of the Week. Then the men's soccer program. Yes, they haven't had their the season that the past few seasons where they are basically literally winning almost every single game match, but they still won the Big Ten. They won it for the second consecutive season, the 16th total. Big Ten will be first in the Big Ten tournament that is coming up. It starts sort of this week and into next week. They won't play till next week. I will be able to, if they get far enough, I'll be able to go, since it is at College Park. So shout out to the men's soccer program, even though they lost a lot, and I mean a lot of key pieces from last year to this year, but they're still finding a way to be ranked top 10 in the nation, and they won the Big Ten. So good luck to them as they go into the Big Ten tournament, and very soon the NCAA tournament. All right, Matt, it's now finally time to start talking about meaningful basketball. We had an exhibition game last week that was basically almost 100% a throwaway game because I don't even remember the one or two things I took away from last week's game. We finally have meaningful basketball. There, what was the score? 98-65. The Hoosiers were 2 points away from scoring triple digits, but 98-65 victory against Western Illinois. What were your overall thoughts with an opponent that is literally at the very bottom of the barrel? Since, again, on this schedule, it starts very easy, and then every single game it gets a little harder all the way up to Florida State.
Absolutely. But look, my first thought is, wow, Justin Smith looked really comfortable out on the basketball court this year. Like, I think we saw it a little bit in the exhibition game. We saw it a little bit in the scrimmage during Hoosier Hysteria, but now we got to see it in actual minutes that matter. And look, game high, 24 points, 11 of 17 from the floor, 1 of 2 from 3, 3 offensive rebounds, 4 defensive rebounds. If you're doing the math, that means 7 rebounds in total, and 2 blocks. Look, Justin was out there doing it all on the court tonight, and he looked great. And then don't let me not mention his fellow junior, Al Durham, 7 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from the three-point line. All 3 threes he made, he looked like he knew they were going in when they left his hand. He was so confident out there tonight. He's also running
from the line. 4 for 4 from the line. Literally did not miss a shot.
He did well. He missed the layups that he then got. He missed a couple of layups that he got fouled on, but then he made the free throw. So he did miss something, but hey, that's besides the point.
The stats say he was perfect. So let's go with that.
Okay, fine, fair. But look, 3 assists, 1 turnover for him. That's a really good mark. Yeah, I mean, look, you got to talk about the juniors out here because Justin Smith, Al Durham looked like they belonged in the court, looked like they were willing to take the mantle of leading scorers. Of course, we're still yet to add Devontae Green back into the fold because of his hamstring injury that who knows how long he's going to be out for. But look, if Justin Smith can play even half this good as he did this game during regular competition in the Big Ten, we're going to be looking at a very good Indiana Hoosiers team.
That's half the point total is 12 points. If he can get 12 points a game, that's good. That's what the Hoosier fans wanted to see from him.
Yes.
If he's averaging 12 points a game, that's awesome. But yeah, you talked about the 2 juniors, and that's of course the highlight point. And when you think about it, since of course Devontae was out and Duran is still clearly trying to get over his injury. We're going to talk about him and some of the other big guys in a second, but he's basically not playing at the moment. So when you've got more or less both of your seniors out, you go to the juniors, and you've got and I kind of throw Joey out of it. I just mean the veteran juniors at the moment. So you've got Al and Justin as your veteran juniors, the guys that are going to lead the team next year as seniors. And of course, it's only one game and it's against Western Illinois, but it's really good to see that you've got your seniors out basically, and those 2 guys step up. They step up in big ways. And you mentioned literally all of the highlights, especially with Al going a perfect 10 for 10. From the field, 4 for 4 from the line. Justin Smith just opposing his will. He shot. He was 11 for 17, which is still pretty good from shooting. He was able to shoot a 3 and knock down a 3, and he didn't take too many, which is good. Got a couple. He got 7 rebounds, tied leading the team for rebounds. And their turnovers were relatively low. Justin didn't have a turnover for a while at least. So definitely going to highlight them. I think we can do this in chunks. So another observation I had was so let's talk about some of the big guys. And first, I thought it was funny. The easiest way to remember the starting lineup, you've got the number 1 jersey number. Number 1 was playing the 1. Number 2 was playing the 2. Number 3 was playing the 3. Number 4 was playing the 4. And number 5 0 was playing the 5. So those are your 5 starters. 1 Al Durham, 2 Armand Franklin, 3 Justin, 4 Trace, and 5 Joey. I think that was pretty easy to get your lineup out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0. But our big guys, and for a team that Archie said that he wanted to run through the big guys, I thought it was an up and down game because when watching the game, I didn't feel like I was very impressed with all of the big men as a whole, minus Trace. But then you look at the stats. I forget where it is. I forgot where it was. Points in the paint. Indiana 58 points in the paint. So when you see 58 points in the paint, you think that there's got to be something going down from the bigs, and you see some rebounds. You had 47 rebounds, which is not bad.
Yeah.
But overall, all right, we'll start at the top. You've got Deron Davis, who is, of course, still trying to get back from injuries, plural, that he's had. You could tell the way he was running on the court. It was not his normal self. He hasn't been able to be in basketball or any type of shape at all recently. So I don't know if he'll ever be able to get back to what he used to do. So I really hope he can get back to doing something so that he can feel good with what he does on the court. You've got Joey Brunk that is still trying to find a bigger role on a team, because remember last year at Butler, he was not in this big of a role. He was sharing his role with a bunch of other players on a team that was arguably farther down on the pecking order than Indiana was. So you've got him trying to find his way, which he's had good and bad moments in both the exhibition game and this game. You've got Race Thompson, who is still trying to get just game minutes now that he's been able to play for was it 10 or 11 months ish now consistently. After the concussion. He just needs game minutes now, so he's still looking rusty with the game minutes. You've got someone like Trace Jackson Davis, who's looking. You see 8 points. It doesn't look like he did as much, but then you look at he was 4 for 5 from the field, so he was being really efficient with his shots. He had 6 total rebounds, which is really good. And then the big stat, which he's going to be doing all season, 4 blocks. And that's not just because they were playing Western Illinois. I think he's going to average somewhere between 2 to 3 blocks per game. He's just a guy that, as Rob in our HQ back channel said, he's a pogo stick, basically. He can jump up and jump down really quickly and get all of those blocks. He also had a steal. So I really like what Trace is giving. And I think there was, right before the season started, I remember people were talking about some lineups, and a bunch of people had it was set in stone that Trace was not going to start. And I thought that was odd, because I thought Trace is one of our best players, at least right now on the court. And he definitely showed some of the stuff that he's got as a freshman, no less. And I forgot to mention the stat. He had 0 turnovers as a freshman. Both of the two true freshmen had 0 turnovers. They did not.
Armand had 8 assists to go with his 0
exactly.
turnovers.
We're going to get to that in a minute. But what did you see from the big guys tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Jackson Davis is, I think Rob in our chat over at the website said he looks like a pogo stick.
Yep.
Absolutely 100%. The first thing that came to my head, he just gets off the floor faster than anybody I've seen outside of when we saw Marvin Bagley come into town when Duke played. He is just a world-class athlete, and he's able to just elevate himself faster than anybody else on the floor. And 4 or 5 from the field, a couple of those were tip-ins, being able to just get off the ground faster than the guy next to him and tip the ball in. And with a light touch with his left hand, was able to do that. Look, 8 points is nothing to be ooh, he's not out here scoring 24 points like Anthony Edwards did for Georgia today. He's the number 2 recruit in the nation. But look, 8 points is solid, 4 or 5 is solid, 6 rebounds is solid, 4 blocks is amazing. That's what we need on this team. He fits the mold of what we need at the forward position so well. And he was making some really good passes out there, or trying to make some really good passes out there. The guys just weren't taking the shots. But look, I really love what I saw from TJD. Joey Brunk, I thought actually had a really good game. I wanted him to get more involved at the beginning of the game. I thought he was probably taking it a little bit too slow. He was getting double teamed and was kind of just okay, I'll pass it around, just getting the flow of the offense, when I thought he maybe should have taken it at some defenders if they had gave him a little bit of space and hadn't doubled. But look, 11 points is really good. 5 of 7 from the floor is obviously really good. And then, like you said about Deron, look, he looks like somebody who has been coming back from injury and just trying to get used to his body again. The way he's been moving, the way he was rotating on defense, he's just trying to get back into game shape. He's not quite there yet. It'll come. as the season goes on. I believe so. He's just got to get more reps. And moving on to another big guy getting more reps, Race Thompson. I think we just talked about it, but he's somebody who's going to need to get more reps. I think you mentioned that earlier. But 6 rebounds for Race is really good. Like,
in 14 minutes.
Yeah, 6 rebounds in 14 minutes. He's a monster on the boards. But something I didn't mention about Trace, plus minus 32. He's the second highest plus minus on the team. It kind of just shows what he means to the team on the defensive end, being able to block shots from the weak side, and just being a rim protector in general. Something that we've missed on this basketball team these past couple of years. So, Trace,
at least
stay as long as you want.
Yeah, at least consistently, because Duran is definitely a rim protector. He just hasn't been on the floor literally an entire season or half a season.
But yeah, look, Trace is a fantastic athlete, rim protector, and an all-around team player. Like, it's a pleasure to have him in Candy Stripes.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, I like what you mentioned about Race, because I talked about how he just needs game reps, and I think that's the case. I don't think it's anything to worry about when you see 4 points from him. He's clearly being kind of eased into his role, which I think he should be. You don't want to rush him into things too much, because remember, he's still sort of kind of just a glorified freshman. He didn't play enough games last year to have to accrue an entire season. So he's kind of just just breaking up sort of kind of the second half of a freshman season, more or less. Let's move on to, though, our guy Jerome Hunter. And again, he's a guy that hasn't played basketball in forever, so you're not going to see too much from him. I think you're seeing some of the other side. We saw a lot from him against Gannon. Then you see the other side of he literally hasn't played basketball on or off the court in practice or anything in a year, and that's where you see that kind of side from him. So again, just time. I think it's just time from him as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, for Jerome, like 7 points, right? 3 of 4 from the line. I think it's something really indicative of how he shoots, right? Like, don't look at the 2 of 5 field goal percentage. Don't look at the 1-3 he took, even though it looked really good off his hands. I think 3 of 4 from the line is the way he actually shoots the ball. As they say, free throws is indicative of how you actually shoot the ball from around the court and on the floor. And Jerome is a pretty good free throw shooter, and we've seen that the first couple games.
Yep. Then you've talked about Justin a lot as more of your forwards, and you had getting into more of the guards. So you kind of eased Demezi with sort of that forward / small guard who played 20 minutes, didn't do too much. I think that's kind of where we'll see him for the most part. We talked about last week how we kind of thought if you had to put the players 1 through 11 that Demezi would definitely be at the bottom, and I guess you're probably going to get a lot of good stuff from him, but then a lot of stuff that you see, he just needs more time, more reps. He did have 3 assists, though, 3 rebounds. He was able to score a couple of points, so he's still able to do something.
Funky 3-pointer.
He did.
Emphasis on the funky.
Yes, I agree. And thankfully, that was the only one he took. So whether it was him or Archie or some coach that says you're not shooting anymore whatsoever, he didn't take any more, which is a good sign. So, Demezi, I think, is just going to need to be eased into it. I don't think he's going to be necessarily a huge liability from some of the stuff we've seen already this season if he has to play a significant amount of minutes. But speaking of significant amount of minutes, since Devontae's out, you've got to see Armaan Franklin, the true freshman, coming in, making, of course, last week making some splash plays. This week, 5 points, 1 for 5, 0 for 2 from the 3. You think, oh dear, what's going on with Armaan? But again, he's a freshman, guys. He still had 5 rebounds. He had 8 assists, like you talked about. And we talked about the fouls, because remember that closed, quote unquote, closed scrimmage for you podcast listeners, where he had 7 fouls. Is that going to be something that translates? He only had 2 fouls tonight, so hopefully that's something that he can actually stay on the court, because he played 27 minutes, and I think he's going to be able to see the court even when Devontae is back and healthy, because he can just give some rest now that he showed he's able to run with some of the big boys. I think he's still going to take some time to ease into it, because he hasn't played anyone nearly, besides the closed Marquette scrimmage, which we don't know how he actually did, anyone nearly close to the overall college basketball size and speed that he will face in the Big Ten most of the season. But I liked in some ways, what I saw from him. The other ways, he's just a freshman playing in his first true game. Rob, coming back from injury, you can see some of it's still injury. I don't think he's there mentally just yet because you saw one like really stupid mistake where I could have stolen a pass. He literally threw it right to the guy's head, more or less. But he still got 14 points. He was 60% from from the field, 1 for 2 from the three. He had a couple rebounds, 3 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, which was not the good part. But you can tell as well he hasn't been playing a lot of basketball this past month. I'm not necessarily worried about him. You already talked about all of Al. So do you want to highlight anything from Armand or Rob or Demizi?
I mean, I thought Rob looked great in the minutes that he played.
I do, yeah. Because, I mean, again, 14 points in 18 minutes in what he did.
And I feel like we played much better team defense when he was out there.
Yep.
6 of 10 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. I thought both threes he took were really good threes. He hit a couple long twos as well with his foot on the line. I think he hit 2 long twos where his foot was on the line, or he was very, very long 2-pointer.
That was a couple in general for the whole team. I feel like there were 3 or 4 that if they took half an inch back, they would have made it. So that's just getting used to the longer
line.
Yeah, I think they would have made more than 5 3-pointers this game if they got used to the line a little quicker.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned this on the podcast before, but actually maybe we probably have. But as you notice, the lines at Assembly Hall, there's 2 3-point lines. The innermost one is for the women. The outermost one is for the men because NCAA moved the 3-point line back for the men. So I think the guys are still getting used to that, I'm sure, having played all of last year and however long they've been at IU with the 3-point line being closer. But look, I thought Al looked great. That's true. But I also thought Rob looked great as well. He hit a couple of step back shots, which if he adds that to his game is going to be really nice. A really nice compliment to his already fantastic ability to drive and get fouled. So yeah, I love what I saw from this team. I know it's Western Illinois and they're not supposed to be good at all, but we went out there and looked like we were the much better team, which is all that you can do in these games. And so 1 game down, 1 game up, 1 win.
Yep. Any final thoughts on the first victory for the Hoosiers that are now 1-0, winning the game by a total margin of 33 points?
I love what I saw from the juniors. I'm really interested to see what Devontae Green is going to add to this team when he comes back and how the rotations look when he does. There's a couple of rotations during the game where I was kind of like, this might be one of the 4 times we see this year.
Which is part of the point. You Archie Miller and any team in the first, unless you're playing a 3v4 or a 1v2 like all of those games tonight, you're going to see lineups. You're not going to see real lineups until mid to late November at the earliest. Consistent, normal lineups.
But I thought through stretches of the game, we looked like a team that was going to go to the NCAA tournament. I mean, we had an 18-point run in the first half where our defense was stifling and we were getting points off turnovers. We were running out on the break and hitting 3-pointers. We looked like a team that had a rhythm on offense and knew what we were doing and what the assignments were on defense. And that is all you can ask of a team in the first game. So I'm really excited for the season to start. Can't wait to see this team grow.
Yep. As I keep looking up a couple statistics since something just came out, let's move on to our social media shout out for the week. Matt, so give us your social media post of the week.
Yeah, sure. So going back to the Michael Penix injury, boo. The website Indiana HQ put out a a very informative video on Michael Penix's injury and what we suspect is the play that Michael Penix got hurt, where he gets slammed into the ground onto his shoulder by 2 Northwestern defenders. So go over to Indiana HQ Twitter and check that out. The guys over the website are doing a lot of work over on our social media and on the website. So of course, always check us out, indianahq.com. And yeah, gotta plug our guys over there.
Yep, at Indiana HQ for the Twitter, Indiana.HQ for the Instagram. And as I am still looking things up, since we have breaking news, the first week of the college football playoff rankings have come out, and I think it was one of the first time, if I was understanding something that I was reading / listening to earlier, it's the first time or one of the first times that a Power 5 team in the first week that has 2 losses is not in the top 25 for the college football playoff rankings. Typically, in the first week, if I was listening to this correctly, a Power 5 team with 2 losses, regardless of what the AP poll ranking is, they were in the college football playoffs top 25. The top 25, by now you've heard everything. Ohio State 1, LSU 2, Alabama 3, and 4. The big 4 that everyone was looking at to see if it's probably Clemson, if not Penn State. It actually is Penn State at 4. Right now, the committee thinks Penn State's body of work is bigger than Clemson. So right now, if Penn State takes care of business this weekend, and if they take care of business, they're definitely going to stay up, if not go above Alabama. I don't think they'll go above Alabama, but they're going to play Minnesota. Then we will be playing a top 4 in the college football playoffs, is a top 4 team on the road next week. But Indiana, of course, as we talked about, did not make the top 25, and here's the 20 through 25 list. Cincinnati comes at 20, Memphis 21, Boise State 22, the very questionable pick at Oklahoma State at 23, Navy at 24, SMU at 25. I talk about Oklahoma State at 23 at 6-3 with a record. The College Football Playoff Committee puts them in. I can't look at their schedule, which is why I was trying to look up some more things, but Indiana does not make the top 25 in the College Football Playoff rankings, which is really sad because there's just another way that Indiana could have possibly gotten in the top 25.
Sure, but I think there's a chance after next week if some of the teams ahead of us lose. I said there's a chance. I didn't say how much of a chance there was. But we're going to have to go to Happy Valley and win. Is that possible? Probably not. But, look, it's a 7-2 Hoosiers team. Anything is possible, I guess. Is it? Kevin Garnett said it once, so it has to be.
That's true. Yeah, speaking of rankings in general, I don't think Indiana will be ranked next week after the bye week. They're too far down on the receiving votes, and the final 4 or so teams have 1 loss. Out of those teams, I don't remember off the top of my head, one of them has a bye week, so they're not going to go down over us. The other 3 teams are playing very, very easy opponents. And of course, they could potentially lose, but a lot of those teams are not going to. And then you also have to jump over teams like UCF and Texas. So I think that's just too many for them to not get a win for. If they played a game, and even if it was against like Rutgers and they got a victory, I think it'd be a much better shot. But not having a game at all, I don't think we're going to see Indiana's name in the top 25 on Sunday. I really hope, obviously, that we're wrong. But despite hoping that there's going to be a top 25 matchup next Saturday, don't know if that'll happen. Let's move on to, in this very long episode, of course, our next and final part of this episode, our game-by-game predictions. So, like I briefly explained at the beginning of the show, each year we will go game by game, literal. Start with game 1, going all the way down to game 31 in the regular season. We'll give our predictions, a win or a loss, and we will tally everything up and see how we do. In update, we did this for football about a couple months ago with Nathan as well for football standings. Thankfully, Matt and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, and we are very happy with our result that we have 2 wrong since we thought we would lose 2. Now, again, remember these predictions were made at the early August, end of July. We thought Indiana would lose to both Nebraska, which is still definite, even a couple weeks ago, which was okay, but we also thought they'd lose to Northwestern. And again, this was made 3 months ago. Anyway, that's okay. Matt and I are both tied at 7-2 apiece. We both had the same exact predictions coming up to this weekend, next weekend against Penn State in general. Matt thought Indiana would beat Penn State, so it will start to get different from there. Nathan right now is at 5-4. He's only had 5 correct games and 4 incorrect games. The final 3 games I have predicted loss, loss, win, which is probably the most likely outcome. Matt predicted a win, loss, loss.
Oh boy.
Nathan predicted loss, loss, loss. So let's hope it's more of my. Well, I don't know actually. I kind of hope it's more Matt. I'd kind of rather beat Penn State and lose to Purdue, even if it's only one more win on the season. I beat Penn State. You beat Penn State, a top 4 team.
I'd rather just not lose to Purdue and beat Penn State. I'd rather be a win-loss win.
If I'm saying if we had to go with my prediction or your prediction, I'd rather have yours.
Or frick it, let's just win the rest of the games and go to the Rose Bowl, guys. Let's do it, Rose Bowl. We're going.
Exactly.
It's happening.
Okay. Going on to basketball, though. I think it's safe to say, even though we are 1 game late of getting tonight's game, I think it was safe to say that we had already predicted that they were going to beat Western Illinois, all of us. So we're just going to say that we're 1-0, and I really hope that
yes.
I think it would have been stupid if one of us would have predicted a loss tonight anyway. But yes, Nathan is not here. I asked for his predictions ahead of time, so I have them. Now, Matt, to save time, do you think it's safe to say Portland State, North Alabama, Troy, Princeton, Louisiana Tech, and South Dakota State? Are you predicting a win in all 6 of those games?
I am predicting win in all 6 of those games. However, Princeton, Louisiana Tech, San Diego State, South Dakota State
does get much harder. Yes,
yeah, they're much harder, and they're going to get a lot closer than say a North Alabama team.
Yes,
so
agreed.
Look out for those games to be a little bit tougher.
Oh, I totally agree. Like we talked about in the Ken Palm standings when we looked at this, it literally started at the very bottom and it got slightly better all the way through Florida State. So
yeah,
all of us predict 7-0. We might be in a little bit of trouble if something goes. If another result happens from that. Now the big game, Florida State. Since Nathan's not here, we can throw him under the bus every single Tuesday, December 3rd. Florida State opens up the first, if you will, the first huge test that the Hoosiers will have. I still think South Dakota State / Louisiana Tech and a little bit of Princeton will be a tough test, but the biggest test to date at that point will be Florida State. Nathan predicts a win. Matt, are you thinking Florida State win or loss in their first?
Yeah, I think it's a win. Florida State's going to be a good team. They're going to be a top 25 team, and I'm assuming they're going to be ranked at this point. But I think with our home court advantage, they don't play almost, I think, other than Cameron Indoor, they don't play a place harder than Assembly Hall is when it's packed and ready to go, and we're 7-0, and there's a ranked team coming to town. Like those teams don't usually leave with a win. So I'm gonna go with Indiana on this one, though it'll be a tough game.
Fair enough. I'm gonna predict a loss, and I will the end-ish of our predictions for part 1. But I am saying a loss against Florida State to open up their basically the beginning of they're going to play for the rest of the season. Let's go to at Wisconsin, Saturday, December 7th. Nathan predicts a loss at Wisconsin, a loss as well as that.
Yeah, I also agree. Look, we don't win at Wisconsin. It just hasn't happened in the last 20 years of IU basketball. And this is a pretty underrated Wisconsin team. I think they're going to be pretty decent. Brad Davidson is one of my favorite players to watch in college basketball. The way he plays defense is amazing. So I think Wisconsin's going to pull off a close one in Madison.
All right. I agree too. Loss. All right, going on to Connecticut neutral site. Nathan predicted a win. I think it will be a win as well. We're gonna have Matt try and come back in here. If I had to guess, I think Matt would also predict a win for this as well. So I'm gonna put him down as a win for that. In addition, let's move on to Nebraska. We've got Friday, December 13th for Nebraska. I think the first home Big Ten victory. I think that's going to be a win for the Hoosiers. Nathan thinks that's going to be a win as well. Matt, I put you down for a win against Connecticut at the MSG, the Madison Square Garden. I put you down for a win there, and I'm going to get your Nebraska prediction. So was I correct in you predicting a win against Connecticut?
Yes. And then also I'm going to predict a win against Nebraska and Fred Hoiberg, who's going to make that program pretty competitive in the next coming years. I am sure he'll get some good recruits because he's a former NBA head coach, and that seems to what happens every time they come down from the NBA. But yeah, that's going to be a win.
Yes, I agree with that. All of us have agreed with that so far. The only thing we have not agreed with so far is Florida State. I was the only one different on that. All right, Notre Dame neutral site, Crossroads Classic up in Indianapolis. Saturday, December 21st. Nathan predicted a win as well. I predicted a win as well. Matt, are you going to differ from us, or are you going to say a win in addition?
I'm actually going to say a loss.
Okie dokie.
We haven't played Notre Dame very well in the Crossroads Classic. I can remember a couple years back having some really tough games with them. I don't know what it is about this Notre Dame team, but people are underrating them a lot. I like Rex Pfluger a lot. I like their head coach, Notre Dame's head coach, Mike Bray, whose name was escaping me for a second. I just like them better in this matchup. I feel like we're going to have to falter at some point in this tough non-conference schedule and this tough stretch here with Florida State and Wisconsin and Connecticut and Notre Dame. I think Connecticut, Wisconsin and Notre Dame are going to be the two teams we're going to lose to.
Ding, 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 ding. That was the reason I had Indiana losing to Florida State. I don't think out of their non-conference schedule, you take away those, you've got those 4 teams that we've all talked about. I think they're going to lose one of them, whether it's against Notre Dame or Florida State or possibly Arkansas. I just had them against Florida State to be different, but I agree with you. If there's going to be not Florida State, I think it'd be Notre Dame. I don't think they go 11-0, 4-0 / 11-0 in the non-conference play. I don't think they get to January basically with an undefeated record.
No.
All right. And so Nathan, so far, if I have forgotten to give that, he has gotten a win in everything so far except for Wisconsin. So he has predicted a win in all of the non-conference so far. So we'll go to, after a very long break, you go Arkansas, Sunday, December 29th at home. I predicted a win against Arkansas. I think Arkansas lost. A few key players. Indiana will be back. They will be hopefully healthy at that point, playing more of team basketball. They'll definitely want revenge last year. Ready to go. He's going to have a tremendous game for missing that last second tip in. Nathan predicted a win as well. Do you think the Hoosiers will go 10-1 in the non-conference, or are they going to go 9-2 with a loss against Arkansas?
10-1. Eric Musselman's going to bring them in, and we're going to beat them up because they knocked out the NIT last year. So expect a good home crowd for that one as well.
Yep. So in the non-conference schedule, I predicted 10-1. Matt predicted 10-1. I think we were on the same thought process there. Indiana does not go undefeated schedule. It just depends on where that loss comes from. And I could move that around too. Matt could probably move that around as well. Nathan did predict an 11-0 non-conference. So at this point, going into official Big Ten play, even though we've had 2 games already. Right now, I have 11-2 with 1-1 in the conference. Matt, same thing. Nathan, 12-1 on the overall record, 1-1 on conference. Now, the last 3 games we'll do for part 1. At Maryland, Saturday, January 4th, I will be in attendance. And let's just get, I think Maryland is overrated at this moment, but they're always a tough team.
You just hate Maryland athletics. What is this?
Well, right now, can you 7th best team in the nation right now?
I like Anthony Cowan a lot. And he's a senior point guard.
But when you think of their coaching staff and what Maryland typically does with the players they have, can you say they're the 7th best team in the nation at the moment?
I mean, look at the teams below them. I can't say that they're like worse than any of the teams below them at this point. So I got to support the Big Ten having some teams in the top 10. All right.
That's fair. But I still think they're, and I meant overrated where they are right now. That means I think a better ranking for them would be in the teens right now, which is not much worse. But that was the only point I was making, is they are still a good team this year, despite what their coaching staff ends up doing with the talent that they usually have. I still
Yes.
think going into Maryland, which is still one of the people forget about it because they're brand new, they've got one of the best crowds. They can potentially have one of the best crowds in Big Ten basketball. They've got a really great home court advantage. So Indiana opens up their consecutive, basically Big Ten play with a loss. Nathan agrees with me. Matt, do you agree?
I disagree. I like how we match
Ooh,
up with Maryland in this game. I like, as much as I just ranted about how I like them having the top 10,
yeah,
and I love how Anthony Cowan plays. Um, and Zach Smith is their power forward. That's his name. It's slipping my brain. Whatever, doesn't matter. I like how we match up with this team a lot. I like the matchup of Rob Finney on Anthony Cowan. I think we can neutralize him with Rob's really good defense. And kind of in the similar way we beat Michigan State at Michigan State last year, I think we're going to beat this Maryland team at Maryland this year. So mark me down for a win.
okay, I like it. I definitely won't disagree with you going a victory over a loss. All right, we another home game, Northwestern, Wednesday, January 8th, and a Northwestern team that, man, this is not their year for Northwestern athletics. Of course, we haven't seen
No,
what the basketball team has done so far, but preseason predictions do not have Northwestern doing very well this year. So
they're
I
not
think
kind.
yes, that's a good way of putting it. They're not kind preseason projections for Northwestern. So I think Indiana takes care of business. They hopefully should be in close to sort of kind of full stride in getting lineups and minutes and everything, and they should be where they hopefully are at playing for the rest of the season. And I don't think this is even a trap game for Indiana, so I'm going to predict a win. Nathan agreed. Matt, yes, no.
Yeah, this is easier than like Louisiana Tech. So yes.
Ooh, wow. So, all right. Then we go into our last game for part one, home game against Ohio State. This is a very debatable game since Ohio State right now, when we're recording this podcast on November 5th, when this game will be played 2 months down the road,
Sure.
Ohio State is pretty highly ranked. And I think they'll be a very good team here. They're projected to be the second or third best team in the Big Ten. So Indiana matches up against them Saturday, January 11th at home. Matt, let's go first. Let's have you go first since I did mine and Nathan's predictions first every time.
Sure. This will be a ranked matchup. DJ Carton, a former 5-star recruit and IU basketball
True.
target, coming into Bloomington, Indiana to play, friends with Trace. I think this is going to be a loss at home. I love this Ohio State team. I love Coach Holtman as a head coach. I would have loved him to be IU's head coach if we hadn't hired Archie. I believe in this Ohio State team is going to be a top 10 team at some point this year, and I'm assuming it's going to be after they beat us at home after we're ranked. So there you go.
Okay. Nathan had a read with Nathan. I think Saturday game, it's probably going to be at least an afternoon, if not a night game, hopefully. So that's going to be obviously a huge crowd, like you talked about.
Sure.
Ranked, hopefully ranked, like you talked about. I think they only, with non-conference schedule, one loss at ranked by then, but ranked game. I think victory against Ohio State, games against Ohio State, them out of the Big Ten tournament and knocking them out of the NCAA this past year. Hopefully that is still in the back of their minds and they're able to beat Ohio State at least at home. So that's where I'm going, a win against Ohio State, at least at home. So
the reason I said
wrap up part
we'd be a ranked team, the reason I say we'd be a ranked team at that point is because we beat Maryland on the road. They'd be a ranked team at that point as well. So
that's true.
there you go.
That's true. Yeah, you're true. Right. You're right. All right. So Ohio State at the end of part one, I have an overall record of 13-3, conference record 3-2. Matt, same exact thing. Just a couple different. It's just gone a couple different ways. Nathan and 2 over into conference records. So we all have the same conference ending part one before it gets nice and juicy with a bunch of Big Ten games coming up next week. So next week will be much more interesting. That's going to wrap it up for us on our 114th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to that live audience for coming out every single week. Particularly appreciate yours. We will be back next Monday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off. News and updates. they come through Twitter, since next week again we will be starting our podcast late. So subscribe, follow us so you don't miss out on our updates, our shows, all of it. Most importantly, if you enjoy our show, if you're someone that really enjoys what we do, you listen to us weekly, give us a shout out. Leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook. That's really how we grow our podcast, is by getting is just you sharing our work out there so other fans can see, hey, this person really likes what these guys do, and I think you should check them out. So that's your support. That's really how we grow this podcast. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.